Transcript of the Smoking Gun Tape, June 23rd, 1972. Haldeman. Okay, that's fine. Now, on the investigation, the Democratic break-in thing, we're back to the problem area because the FBI is not under control, because Gray doesn't know exactly how to control them, and their investigation is now leading into some productive areas because they've been able to trace the money, not through the money itself, but through the bank, sources, the banker himself. And it goes in some directions we don't want it to go. Also there have been some things, like an informant came in off the street to the FBI in Miami who is a photographer or has a friend who is a photographer who developed some films through this guy, Barker, and the films had pictures of Democratic National Committee letterhead documents and things. So it's things like that that are filtering in. Mitchell came up with yesterday, and John Dean analyzed very carefully last night and concurs now with Mitchell's recommendation that the only way to solve this, and we're set up beautifully to do it, that the only network that paid any attention to it last night was NBC. They did a massive story on the Cuban Nixon. That's right. Haldeman. Thing. Nixon. Right. Haldeman. That is the way to handle this for now, is for us to have Walters call Pat Gray and just say, stay the hell out of this. This is business here. We don't want you to go any further on it. That's not an unusual development, and that would take care of it. Nixon. What about Pat Gray? You mean he doesn't want to? Haldeman. Pat does want to. He doesn't know how to, and he doesn't have any basis for doing it. Given this, he will then have the basis. He'll call Mark Felt in, and the two of them, and Mark Felt wants to cooperate because Nixon. Yeah. Haldeman. He's ambitious. Nixon. Yeah. Haldeman. I'll call him and say, we've got the signal from across the river to put a hold on this. And that will fit rather well because the FBI agents who are working the case at this point feel that's what it is. This is CIA. Nixon. But they've traced money to him. Haldeman. Well, they have. They've traced to a name, but they haven't gotten to the guy yet. Nixon. Would it be somebody here? Haldeman. Ken Dahlberg. Nixon. Who the hell is Ken Dahlberg? Haldeman. He gave $25,000 in Minnesota, and the check went directly to this guy Barker. Nixon. Maybe he's a bum. He didn't get this from the committee though, from Sands. Haldeman. Yeah, it is. It's directly traceable, and there's some more through some Texas people that went to the Mexican bank, which they can also trace to the Mexican bank. They'll get their names today. Nixon. Well, there's no way. I'm just thinking if they don't cooperate, what do they say? They were approached by the Cubans. That's what Dahlberg has to say. The Texans too. Is that the idea? Haldeman. Well, if they will. But then we're relying on more and more people all the time. That's the problem. And they'll stop if we could take this other step. Nixon. All right, fine. Haldeman. And they seem to feel the thing to do is get them to stop? Nixon. Right, fine. Haldeman. They say the only way to do that is from White House instructions. And it's got to be Helms and, what's his name? Walters. Nixon. Walters. Haldeman. And the proposal would be that Ehrlichman and I call them in and say, Nixon, how do you call him in? We protected Helms from one hell of a lot of things. Haldeman. That's what Ehrlichman says. Nixon. Of course. This is a hunt. You will. That will uncover a lot of things. You open that scab, there's a hell of a lot of things, and that we just feel that it would be very detrimental to have this thing go any further. This involves these Cubans' hunt and a lot of hanky-panky that we have nothing to do with ourselves. Well, what the hell? Did Mitchell know about this thing to any much of a degree? Haldeman: I think so. I don't think he knew the details, but I think he knew. Nixon: He didn't know how it was going to be handled, though, with Delbrig in the Texas and so forth. Well, who is the asshole that did? Is it Liddy? Is it that the fellow? He must be a little nuts. Haldeman: He is. Nixon: I mean, he just isn't well screwed on, is he? Isn't that the problem? Haldeman: No, but he was under pressure, apparently, to get more information, and as he got more pressure, he pushed the people harder to move on. Nixon: Pressure from Mitchell? Haldeman: Apparently. Nixon: Oh, Mitchell. Mitchell was at the point you made on this. That exactly what I need from you is on the Haldeman gemstone. Yeah. Nixon: All right, fine. I understand it all. We won't second guess Mitchell and the rest. Thank God it wasn't Coulson. Haldeman: The FBI interviewed Coulson yesterday. They determined that would be a good thing to do. Nixon: Haldeman: To have him take an interrogation, which he did, in that the FBI guys working the case had concluded that there were one or two possibilities. One, that this was a White House. They don't think that there is anything at the election committee. They think it was either a White House operation and they had some obscure reasons for it, non-political, or it was a Nixon, Cuban thing. Haldeman: Cubans in the CIA. And after their interrogation of Nixon, Coulson, Haldeman, Coulson, yesterday, they concluded it was not the White House, but are now convinced it is a CIA thing. So the CIA turnoff would. Nixon: Well, I'm not sure of their analysis. I'm not going to get involved. Haldeman: No, sir, we don't want you to. Nixon: You call them in. Good. Good deal. Play it tough. That's the way they play it, and that's the way we are going to play it. Haldeman: Okay, we'll do it. Nixon: Yeah, when I saw that news summary item, I of course knew it was a bunch of crap, but thought, well, it's good to have them off on this wild hair thing, because when they start bugging us, which they have, we'll know our little boys will not know how to handle it. I hope they will, though. You never know. Maybe. You think about it. Good. When you get these people in, say, look, the problem is that this will open the whole Bay of Pigs thing, and the president just feels that, without going into the details, don't lie to them to the extent to say there's no involvement. I would just say this is sort of a comedy of errors, bizarre, without getting into it. The president believes that it is going to open the whole Bay of Pigs thing up again. And because these people are plugging for keeps, and that they should call the FBI in and say that we wish for the country, don't go further into this case, period. Haldeman: Okay. Nixon: That's the way to do it. Do it straight. Haldeman: Get more done for our cause by the opposition than by us at this point. Nixon: You think so? Haldeman: I think so, yeah.